welcome to another edition of the SEANC View Podcast. I'm Jonathan Owens, your Communications Director. Here in the spacious world headquarters of the SEANC View Podcast, we made a new studio area for our efforts, and it's pretty awesome. Sam Klein decorated it well. So let me introduce everyone then first. Sam Klein, since you were first, the prestigious podcast producer, along with Artis Watkins, Scenic Executive Director, and Suzanne Beasley, the Government Relations Director for Scenic. How are y'all doing?
Good.
I got to get used to looking into nothing here.
It does feel different.
What am I doing?
Well, you don't got to look at the mic. You can just pretend it's not there and act like you're having a conversation.
Yeah.
We got to give people the visual, though. All right, so Sam got in this room, and honestly, over just a couple-day period, right?
Yeah, I started on Friday and was done by Tuesday afternoon.
Okay, so she came in here and put these soft tile things to try to quasi-soundproof the walls to a regular office, and had furniture she ordered that she put together. Anyway, did all of this stuff.
It's very professional looking.
Yeah. And the mics are now, so that we don't hit them as much, hopefully, they're on stands that kind of stick out and come out in front of us and over us. So that's what John was alluding to with not really sure where to.
Yeah, not where to.
Different.
Not sure where to put my hands. Remember on Talladega
This is
Night.
awesome, Bob the Builder, a.k.a. Sam.
Yeah.
This is wonderful.
Great job, Sam.
Thank you.
You can go on Artis's Twitter feed and you can see a picture of the office.
Yeah, right when you finished.
Yeah, the tiles are even scenic blue.
I got to kind of admit, though, like those rooms where it's like a psychological room, like where they like inspire.
Right,
it's kind of like that a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
it's
okay.
It's kind of making me anxiety ridden. So
well, we're in the thick of the legislative season, so
perfect timing then, right?
I feel like it should make you have less anxiety because, you can just throw yourself against the wall and it's soft.
Hey, we could get those like Velcro suits and never mind.
That sounds like
We digress. We digress, y'all.
So today is Thursday.
Thursday.
Today's Thursday, March 27th, and we're still in the thick of the legislature. So Suzanne, give us a quick rundown of what's going on over there and what happened this week.
Yeah, we've still got quite some time to be in the thick of the legislature. Obviously, I know everything that's at the top of everybody's mind right now is pay raises, COLAs. So we are currently talking to every legislator we can get some FaceTime with. I have had the opportunity to speak with Representative Arp, who is one of the big co-chairs in the House, and that was a really nice conversation. No decisions have been made as of this point. We've still got a ways to go with budget, but we are on that, and legislators are too. So stay tuned for that.
What was the overall reception of the governor's budget over there?
The governor's budget is pretty much recommendation, although there is so much more talk of. There were positive things, especially him being a governor of the opposite party of the legislature. They were really positive about a surprising amount of what he said. But
hopefully not the pay raise part, right?
Yeah.
no, actually, Speaker Hall was quoted to the press as saying, he thought they were going to do a better pay raise than what Governor Stein put in there, which hit a lot of the members of the press who have commented on it on podcasts and things like that as bizarro world, because you've got Republicans saying we need to do better on that pay raise part than the Democratic governors. But it's not bizarro world to us. We know that honestly what people will put forth or do for public employees has nothing to do with their political party and everything to do with how much they believe it's an issue, where the priority is.
Right.
Not to change the subject, but just quickly, we are having some roof work done to our building. So if you hear some grinding or weird sounds, we'll just blame it on that. It may not always be that, but we'll blame it on that.
It is
At least this week.
It is hysterical, Sam, that you did all this work so we could have a room where we didn't hear all the noises we heard in my conference room. And we're having this roof work done because nothing you can do there.
Happens to be the week that roof work is getting done.
So funny.
Just how I accidentally timed it.
So other bills over there this week, I know that there was a deadline this week, right?
There was. The Senate bill filing deadline was the 25th, Tuesday. So it was quite hectic. We were up late reading bills Tuesday night and filling in our bill tracking. So if you'll check the link on the Scoop that comes out on Fridays, there is a list of all the bills that we are just keeping up with. Now, I want to make this clear about that list of bills. It doesn't mean that we actually are taking a position on every single single one of those bills. But what we do is go through all the bills as they're filed, and we pull out anything that may have something to do with state government employees or retirees, state health plan, retirement system, any of those things. So we literally have to scan all the bills and look for that kind of language. So just because there is a super long list of bills does not mean that we are taking a position on every single one of those bills. We've had some
You just watch.
Yeah, you just watch to see what's going to happen. I've had some legislators reaching out to a couple of members for information. Obviously, they are calling us to find out, and that's how I discovered apparently one new legislator is calling and wanting to know our position on every single bill, and so I just want to make that.
Person?
I know, so
That's great. Thank you.
yeah, I mean, glad you're on top of it, but that's the situation.
I saw a tweet that there was an average of 5 bills per senator filed for that deadline. So that's
Probably sounds about right.
that's a lot of bills.
Yeah, there were a lot of bills.
I guess that would make sense, right? So that'd be how would that be, like 1,000 bills? Wow.
That's a lot of
That seems like a lot.
bills, even for one legislator to deal with. But there's a lot of bills. We say it every time. Never seen so many bills filed, but
I know it feels like that every time.
yeah.
But again, and there's always a dump on the deadline day. There's always a dump of bills, so
You got bills and you got bills.
Yeah.
There's bills that are very much meant
Right.
to move.
Yeah.
And then you got bills that are meant to make a political statement or because you don't like somebody, maybe even sometimes.
Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it'd be fascinating to go back after the end of the session and look at how many actually get any movement. I mean, usually probably the minorities party doesn't get a lot of traction on most of their bills, right?
It's usually, yeah, I mean, that's
Usually the
to
case.
the winner go the spoils, right?
Yeah.
Which was interesting because the big majority of the bills filed on Tuesday were Democrats.
Demonstrative bills, including the Petey Pablo as the state hip hop.
Yeah. And you and I have had this conversation about the lyrics of the song.
I commented on one of my friend's Facebook posts about it, and I was like, fun fact, you know that and it's not a bad thing. Like, that's what he's saying.
No, he's just stating the truth.
That's what he's rapping about
Yeah.
was the prisons.
Yeah.
Like, all the places he mentions in there are prisons. So, but I think most people just think they're towns, but they're not.
No, it's where he's been incarcerated.
And or he knows people who have,
Or knows people.
but a
who
correctional
have.
officer at our convention told me that, and it kind of blew my mind a few years back. So,
Random little story about Petey Pablo, so I'd completely digress here, but it's funny. He apparently had relatives way out in the country where we lived at one time, and he and his cousin were riding motorcycles, and they ran out of gas in our front yard.
wow.
They were trying to make it to the store to get gas, and, so I went out there because at that time we were still riding motorcycles too, so kindred spirits. So I went to see if they were okay, and they were simply out of gas, so I get a gas can. Dude gets in my car, we run up to the store, and all of a sudden it clicks with me. So when he gets back in the car, I asked, "Are you Petey Pablo?" And he looked at me and said, "I am." I am.
Well, that's cool.
So, yeah, that was kind of neat. He hung out for,
That is
I don't
cool.
know, a good
What
hour.
were the chances in your front yard?
Right?
Well, a non-rap related bill filed this week, or 2 bills, right, was the treasurer's bills.
And the
Can you explain
treasurer's,
those?
it's an agency bill, the Investment Modernization Act. It's a very long bill, but it basically is setting up what is going to be called the Investment Authority, which will be made up of professionals in the investment industry. The goal is to make good decisions about our investments, maybe generate some money in a system that can offer a COLA. But also included in that bill is a provision about the digital assets that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Speaker Hall had filed a bill, House Bill 92, that would give the treasurer up to 10% of the pension fund to invest in digital assets. I'm not savvy with what all of those are, but that lit everybody on fire. So that bill got pulled. It's still parked. And then this bill was filed this week with the language. It does bring the cap of what the treasurer could invest down from 10% to 5%.
Could invest in those.
Those,
digital,
yeah.
Or any high risk, right?
Yes.
It's still interesting, though, because as Artis said, he can do that already, right? Like, what's the point of the bill?
So there's a cap on how much you can put in high risk, and that was because we had a fit when alternative investments, the hedge funds, the REITs, the real estate investment trusts, things like that were going so hog wild around the country, and systems were getting into trouble. They were putting so much in these alternative investments, high risk, high return, if the risk pays off, and that would mean a loss if it doesn't. So we worked hard to try try to make sure parameters were put in place. Basically, here's the situation. North Carolina has a sole fiduciary, and what that means is the treasurer by himself, and obviously he consults people about it, but at the end of the day, the decision is the treasurer of North Carolina's alone as to where all of that retirement money gets invested. There are only 4 or 5 states, it used to be 5, I think it might be 4 now, that do it that way. Everybody else has a board that does it. We've had a board in North Carolina, it just didn't have the final say on where money would go. This is going to be a process. This is a huge change. And I can see some good things that could come out of this. But because it's such a massive change, there are a number of areas there which could be pitfalls and which we need to get details on it because we've worked in this stuff for so many years now. We want to make sure it protects our retirees and the actives who might want to be retirees one day and the taxpayers while they're doing that because our members are taxpayers in addition to being employees or retirees. All of that being said, Treasurer Briner reached out to us prior to the bill actually hitting and said, want to make sure you're aware this is out there. And he's keeping those lines of communication about this bill open. I do want to really point that out because sometimes a bill can get thrown out there, rushed through, even if it's a wholesale huge change like this is. And that doesn't appear to be at all what's happening here. So far, SEANC's being talked to, and we're having actual discussions about the issues and why our stand has been what it's been for so many years. So I do want to say that this will be an ongoing thing on this podcast. Really, there's not much to tell right now, except these things have been filed. The intention of the treasurer is to change this, and we will make sure to the degree that we are allowed to be part of those discussions, because of course we're going to try to make sure we are, that we're fighting for the interests of our members.
Yeah, there's probably, just off the top of my head, a lot of different facets of that bill, like who picks the board, right? Who makes up the board?
It would be politically appointed, just like the board is now.
And would it be similar to the State Health Plan Board, I guess?
Yeah, it would be.
Well, do you see it being like the exact board they have now, just with more authority, or?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I think it'll be much more Wall Streety.
Okay. Will there be a state employee
No,
representative?
it would not. Bill would call for people who are doing that for a living, deep in it.
Investment professionals.
Okay.
So yeah, it's one of those massive changes where we take great issue with that because we think you have to have a voice of the people on the group to point out real world concerns. The treasurer's position, though, is that he's not trying to leave real people out of the room. Mm-hmm. He's trying to have investment decisions that are for hundreds of billions of dollars be made by people whose background and full-time gig is dealing with making investment decisions. So it's a process here to get through this bill.
Okay, so stay tuned on that one. We'll definitely be covering that one a lot more. Before we go on to more, I just want to take a little aside and talk about the new celebrity in our midst here, Suzanne, with her videos. You've been doing some great videos this week, Suzanne. If you've seen our Facebook or our Twitter or even our TikTok has gotten a lot of followers this week because of Suzanne's presence. And so I have to give credit. Artists did start this trend. She just... Tell them where this came from, because you were just kind of like, I got to make a video.
I was miffed one day. Okay. One day I was very upset that it's clear people don't understand that state government has not been growing. Mm-hmm. We are not out of control where we need to cut state employees because we just have too many of them, or cut vacant state employee positions because we have too many. We have, in fact, decreased the size of state government in the last 15 years by a significant amount. I think it's 24%, whereas our population has grown by 16% during that same time. Mm-hmm. So population grows a bunch, number of people serving them, public employees, decreases by way more. And so did a little video just to explain that, because I felt like it was something we need to get out there because it's really misunderstood. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I asked Suzanne, hey, do a video every day from the legislature to give our members an update, because people did respond to that kind of short format, which...
Yeah, it's literally like a minute and a half to 2 minutes. So.
Yeah. And you did another one, I think, the next day on retiree. So you've done a few as well. And then you did one together, and then you took over.
Well, we're not doing
it's not really
different things. I want to be clear, so that I've asked the legislative team to do...
Today at the NCGA.
Yeah. But when there's other issues, we'll throw one out there when it's needed or necessary.
I think we've all talked about how we need to do that more. And I think
we're just trying
really
to amp up the communications generally.
I think it's really been received well. A lot of the comments are just thank you for
thank you for the update.
So that's really great.
People like it. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes me happy that,
Yeah.
for 2
feel like-
minutes of your day, I gave you something,
Knowledgeable.
yes, of substance.
I feel like sometimes when you are miffed, as you say, that's when the best content comes about.
Yeah. People.
Because sometimes I'll just be sitting in my apartment and I'll get angry about the stupidest little thing, or I'll just be sad or something.
Can you imagine if I made a video every time something annoyed me?
And then I'll just be like, I know there's a trending TikTok sound that fits this. I'm
Oh my
making a
gosh.
TikTok.
I was born way before my time, apparently.
Oh, how many videos would artists do about me and you, Suzanne, if she did it every time she was upset?
Oh, we just have, this is
Anger.
fun. It's easier to digest these really complex and oftentimes not terribly pleasant issues. And it's the way of the
Well, and I
world now.
like it because I've been in the moment
Yeah.
every day this week giving you guys some information, albeit a 2-minute update, but I've been able to tell you what's going on over there. Maybe not in all the details, but
And we've asked our MERS to do the same when they're in events and things. I
Murr
think.
is our member reps.
Remember, yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay. We love acronyms.
We have our own little language sometimes, but yeah. Thing about TikTok, like TikTok gets a bad rap for being like funny videos and people dancing and whatnot, but you can really learn a lot of things on
A
TikTok.
lot of people,
Yeah.
Sam pointed that out when there was the whole controversy over whether or not TikTok was being taken away forever.
Yeah. We still don't know how we got it back for as long as we've had it.
I like how
Because it was supposed to be gone by right now. Like, it was only supposed to be like a
weird.
75-a-day extension. And we're like, don't know what happened in that room. Don't know what conversations were had.
I like
but
how
I'm
you
not
use like
mad.
a universal we, like you have a little group, like you represent a group of.
Okay, that's another. I don't say y'all. I say
Okay.
you guys a lot. I say a lot of things that sound like I would be from the north
You do, actually.
rather than.
I hadn't thought about it, but you do. Well, stop that.
It comes by me, honestly. My
So I do
grandparents
want to
are
say,
from there.
though, that over the weekend, I was with a group, national group that was meeting in Charlotte called the Working Assembly of Governmental Employees. Great group, and we were all sharing, ideas what people are doing and to get the word out about what public employees do, where they're from. And the most questions we got were about the fact that we have a podcast now. And then there was a lot of stuff around AI and social media, which was kind of interesting, actually. I had no idea people were using it that much in social media. But we have to find all the ways to communicate with our folks. And I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you to the folks at Wage for having us. And we're the newest member of Wage. Very proud to be part of them.
Can you explain who else is? I know Virginia State Government Association.
There's a number of people who were in it. I mean, there were some local government folks who were there. I mean, there were folks from California, from Nevada. It was a really interesting thing because some of our issues are really different. We come from different places. Some, like I said, are representing local employees exclusively.
Yeah.
And we've got this weird association where it's mainly state employees, but we do have everybody: university, community college, public schools, local governments.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of everybody in SEANC, even though we're called the State Employees Association. So there was things that were different, but there were definitely some common themes. And healthcare, I think, is the biggest, where everybody's struggling with healthcare issues.
I feel like that's one of the things that makes SEANC's podcast work so well is that we do have so many different voices and different points of view on the podcast.
Yeah, and we try to get
Bringing in
we try to
members
get people
and
in to
legislatures.
share their viewpoint, to have their say. Like we had Representative Torbett in here to explain that Doge committee the House has, even though he says they don't call it Doge. And I know Suzanne's team has asked several other legislators, because we want them to be able to have their voice heard on why they filed some legislation that maybe state employees don't know how to react to, or have a bad reaction to, or a good, but they're not certain, why did that particular legislator file that bill? And so we're trying to ask people on. And I don't know if you've got some folks who have said maybe, right?
yeah, some maybes, and a lot of busy people these days. A lot of busy people right now. So we will keep at it and try to find some interesting folks for you guys to hear besides us.
Yeah.
So one person I reached out to because of our next topic was the State Auditor's Office. I've asked a few people over there if he could come on and explain exactly what the DAVE Act is, which you mentioned earlier. And before we talk about that, let's talk about the new obsession with acronym acts. Because this week we had the Ric Flair Act. Did you see that?
What is that?
I think it was basically bringing awareness to North Carolina's role in professional wrestling. It was a bipartisan bill. I think Representative Chaudhry and a few others were on it. So You'll have to look into that one. We'll add that to the list of bills we're tracking.
We'll track that for sure.
But
yeah, there's been the official cookie.
There's been the Cooper Act, which was about hurricane relief. So there's been a few of the acronym acts. I guess it's just kind of a cute way to.
It's just popular. I mean, it's popular at the federal level. It's popular at the state level.
So the Dave Act. Tell me a little bit about that. The state auditor's name is Dave Boliek.
The Dave Act has what's concerning to us particularly is it has a provision in it that gives a directives to the state auditor to look at all the vacant positions in state government and then make a recommendation on whether any of those positions should be eliminated. He's not given the authority, obviously, as a state auditor to eliminate any of those positions, but obviously making a recommendation to the General Assembly would be impactful.
So let's take inventory at this point, right? This is what's confusing me. I think any issue, any effort towards efficiency, God knows we've been screaming for it for years. So yay. But if you do multiple separate investigations into efficiency, that sounds like on its face the least efficient thing I can think about. And I don't know that you're going to get there. I also struggle with how in the world? I mean, we've worked with public employees for decades. We've gone to their work sites. We've talked to them about what really goes on. I would have no idea. And I don't know how many hours I'd have to sit with supervisors to figure out exactly what positions weren't needed. And how would I know the exact correct people to talk to get the right opinion on that within the agency? But that's a whole aside.
That's what I was going to ask. Like,
well, he would have
why
to
would
go
the state auditor? Yeah, why would the state auditor know how many people we need at a prison or things like that? You know,
my assumption is they would want him to do the way he does audits, go and talk to people. Yeah. But for an audit, it is what it is. It's on paper. The money's either there, it's not. It's being spent a certain way, it's not. There's some subtleties here that would have to be understood. You'd have to understand so much about the work that's being done. And again, you could talk to one supervisor, one person in the structure of the agency who might give you a completely different opinion than the next person because they've not worked with that particular position in that way. But again, I want to go back to what we have now. Here's what confuses me. We have the DOJ effort on the House side. We now have the Dave Act the Senate has proposed for the auditor to do. We already have a joint legislative commission on governmental operations. And on the General Assembly's website, it says they hold government programs and agencies accountable and ensure that tax dollars are utilized in an efficient and effective manner. The commission seeks to measure actual outcomes of government programs and ensure programs accomplish the goals they intended to achieve. So that seems like the legislature already has that place. Then there's the Legislative Oversight Committee, which does arguably some similar work. Why are we doing these things all over the place? But before that, there was the Program Evaluation Division way back that was replaced in 2007, I think, with something else that would look at programs, and then it was taken away. But again, we've got the Joint Committee on Governmental Operations and then the Legislative Oversight Committee.
Yeah, it's not like there's not already something established.
So let's give you an example that we gave earlier when Representative Torbett was here. We have sat through, I don't know how many times, in these different committees at the legislature called different things. Presentations on nurses in prisons and how much it costs us to have companies that have traveling nurses go through and do this work versus just hiring nurses and sticking them in the prisons. I don't know how many times they came in and said, it's really inefficient to hire these companies and do it this way. And everybody would say, ooh, yeah. And then literally nothing would change.
Yeah, here we are.
So I'm hopeful that there are some efficiencies that come out of it. I'm more concerned that it's everybody's doing their own thing. And it'll be interesting to see how it comes out.
Yeah, there was also a bill, House Bill 549, that would allow the state auditor to move a lot of employees out of the protections of the state human resources.
Yeah, part 2 of that bill will make all of the state auditor's office employees exempt.
But why?
Which is weird because you would
I'd
think
love to
that would
ask
be
him.
the one place where you'd want nonpartisan employees, right?
Well, I mean, I don't think the State Human Resources Act is about whether or not it's partisan. It's just laying out the protections, rights, and responsibilities of employees. But yeah, I mean, I would think you'd want people in the auditor's office particularly to feel they could speak up and they've got
Right.
laid out rights and responsibilities.
And we've already heard from some of our members who are concerned specifically about that, that basically they're safer in their work environment
Yeah.
if they are covered under the
And I
State
don't know.
Human
I have no
Resources
idea
Act,
if it's an agency bill. Mm-hmm. So the auditor wants this. Mm-hmm. Well, if anybody that works for Auditor Boliek hears this, we'd love to have the auditor on the podcast to talk about that, to talk about the work that he'll be doing under the Dave Act should it pass. And, there's so many things we want to talk about right now, but I think the auditor is a central figure in a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I pull back on that being an agency bill. It doesn't clearly state that here.
Oh, so it's maybe not an agency bill.
Maybe not an agency bill. It's fine.
Okay, well, I would love to know where the auditor stands on
Yeah.
it.
Well, he's getting so many new tasks and responsibilities. It would be great to hear from him. So.
Yeah. But I think people want to know, because I think, John, where you were using the word political, if you're not covered by the State Human Resources Act, the danger is you could become a political appointee.
Yeah.
And then we
Or
don't want people who are doing investigative work to have a slant.
Or even fired for not doing what the politically elected person.
And that is by no means to say there's anything. I don't know Auditor Boliek.
No, this is just in general.
But
any of the
exactly.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter if it's him or anybody else that's ever been
zoo
auditor.
or the
It's just there's certain positions that are kind of very sacred where you would want to make sure the employees can just do the job, not even feel whether they should or not.
Yeah.
Feel some kind of that they
kind
don't
of
have
way.
protection. Yeah.
Yeah. Back to the Dave Act, and this is maybe just a little tangent, but I was listening to the Jon Stewart weekly podcast. I like to listen to that one. I'd highly recommend it. He had Ezra Klein on this week, who is kind of doing a book tour for this new book that he has out. It's kind of being seen as kind of a dig at the Democrats and the bureaucracy, if you will. But they did talk a lot about the public service employees and the whole DOGE effort. And I guess a lot of what I just wanted to bring to y'all was a lot of his point was that these people that work in these positions are just carrying out what they've been told to do. Like, it's not their fault if there's waste, fraud, and abuse. It's a larger state budgets and things like that set the job for them.
Yeah. I mean, if you have fraud from an employee,
You can fire them.
I was going to say that's on the supervisor if they're not taking act, because that should lead to criminal charges even. So that's a whole different thing. But your rank and file employees are doing what they're told. So I don't think this ever begins as let's go after these rank and file employees. But what happens is at the end of the day, it's so complex. Like I said, we've had movements for years, things set in place, appropriately set in place to find deficiencies. Entire reports have been given on things that end up to be a bit complex. So everybody nods and moves on. So if you need to show you did something at the end of the day, the easiest way to do that and just move on is say, well, we've cut some jobs. Look at us.
Yeah. I guess that was
We're
kind of
really
the point I was trying to get to, that there's just a lot of demonizing of public employees in general, and it's not directed in the right place. Like, it's just their job. It's just what they do. It's not like they want to make DMV lines.
No, but you're
long
missing the
or-
point. People think public employees sit and do
Yeah.
nothing and actively want to do nothing.
Yeah.
Or if they work for Department of Revenue, somehow they think those folks want to hurt them all the time. So the rest of state government, lazy. Revenue, actively trying to hurt people 24/7. It's nutty. It's just letting our most base instincts, honestly, just go wild and think that private sector is perfect and public sector is lazy. And that is absolutely just a jerk position to take.
Truly.
And I guess overall, I just have a problem with hearing people excited about cutting jobs. It's someone's job. It's someone's life.
Money's life.
livelihood, have a little
And there's been a
compassion.
lot of, we've always had to struggle with public perception of state government employees. And it's just a little more of a struggle now.
Yeah.
Well, okay, when people say run government like a business, but they don't require a business with government contracts that they show us squat to show they're being efficient. And we don't, by the way. And we know for a fact, in many cases, it's really inefficient. We keep talking about that and like a lot of these incentives. For the several decades we've been doing this, I don't know how many times we've sat through legislative discussions over how inefficient these incentives usually end up being. And there will be this big push to stop doing them because they're just a boondoggle for companies companies that turn around and leave you. And then a couple years go by and we're starting to do a bunch of them again. And it's a cyclical thing. But there is never this backlash against corporate. Not only not a backlash, no one ever demands we find if there's inefficiency in the corporate world as it pertains to taking taxpayer dollars to do a job. That's hypocrisy.
Yeah, well, DOT's not called the cash cow for no good reason.
Yeah. I mean, when it's just the worst kept secret in town that you want a government contract because, and that's not to say the folks at DOT are not trying their hardest to make sure these contracts are being done. It's disheartening, though, to a lot of people who have to supervise somebody who's working for a contractor when the person they're supervising is making twice what they're making, but won't do the job without somebody staying right on them. And that is happening sometimes.
Sam has we got to get you a light. So
I need to get like a button that just says me.
Yeah.
Raise your hand.
I like it.
That makes me think of like a couple months ago, maybe longer than that. I don't remember. I was home in Fayetteville, and my family is always complaining about the construction on the roads there. It's always going on. They recently finally added a roundabout where we had thought that there was going to be a roundabout there 3 years ago, like 2022. And they finally had finished it. And my dad had said something just like snide in the car. And he was like, it never gets done. It takes so long. And I just kind of was sitting there and I was like, Dad, we have a 25% vacancy in state government right now. And he was like, never mind. That makes sense on why things are taking so long to get done.
And it may not even, it's more likely than not, it's not state employees who are handling that work because, and this has been bipartisan, by the way, multiple legislatures run by Democrats and then Republicans and governors who are Democrat and governors who are Republican. There has been a systematic decimation of the Department of Transportation in this state. So the good road state, we used to be called that, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah.
Has seen our roads get less compliments and less compliments.
It feels like
Let's
it's
put it that
turning
way.
into, and this is no dig at them, it's kind of a dig at them. Feels like it's turning into South Carolina. Everyone talks about the difference between the roads in North Carolina versus South Carolina, and it feels like it's turning into that.
And look, you can't just ignore the fact that happened after we started contracting more and more and more of it out. And in so doing, sold equipment, all that kind of stuff to where you can't easily take it back without a huge capital outlay. Oh, we can't do the work ourselves. Because if we do, we'll have to buy all this equipment. And this equipment, as you can imagine, is hundreds of thousands of dollars for these pieces of machinery. So, a no-win situation was set up. And the beauty is the average taxpayer going down the road thinks, golly, these state employees aren't getting squat done on this road.
And every truck you pass by will be something towing or something.
They're all
paving,
different.
something.
Yeah.
They're never the yellow trucks.
Everybody's got their nose in that trough.
We
Got their
didn't
snout in
delve
there.
too deep into that conversation when I was at home.
They know where you work now, right?
Well, so I hope when we're looking at government efficiency, no matter if it's the House, if it's the auditor, if it's the legislature itself through the proscribed committees that are supposed to be doing it, if we have the dog catcher looking at it next week, whoever, that I would hope government efficiency means government, not just employees, contracts. And why do we have the number of them we do? Have we ever looked at them to see if they're cost effective, if we're paying less than we would to do it ourselves, and if we're getting as quality a product?
Yeah, because I'm just picturing, maybe, guys, if you let us see all of those contracts, we could tell you how to save money. You hire more state employees and give them raises versus how much you're paying for these contracts.
Yeah, facts.
I guarantee you these contracts are more expensive, but we can't see any of it to prove it.
Exactly.
Well, open invitation to John Stewart if he wants to come onto our podcast.
We invite
That
everyone.
would be so awesome.
We really do invite
John Stewart, Dave Boliek, all the legislature.
everyone. Yeah, I mean,
Governor
anybody that wants to come on. Truly, if you've got something you want to come talk about, let us know.
We're issuing the invitations all about the General
It helps us
Assembly.
feel
If you want to come in and say that was horse crap, what you just said about contracts, then come on in.
We're down for
Hey, that would be a good one. A contractor, somebody with a government contract. Come in and talk about how.
Can you expose the contracts? Are they allowed to expose it to us? I mean, I know we can't see the government side of it, but can we see their side of it?
They could probably just talk in general, though.
Yeah.
All right. And speaking of Doge, this week there was a story that I guess it was today maybe that 80 folks at DHHS will be losing their jobs because of some federal funding that they lost. So we're starting to feel in state government some of the effects of what's going on at the federal level.
So obviously we're going to have to see what the fallout is, as we go and learning this about 80 positions. The next question obviously is what services are affected.
Yeah.
And how big is that going to be felt by the public? But if you're a state employee and your job is partly federally funded and you're doing work that's important to the public, please let us know at podcast@scenic.org.
Love to hear from you.
All right. So it's time for the question of the week.
John's wacky weird question of the week.
All right. So it's been kind of a stressful time for you, at least, Suzanne, down at the legislature. Let's talk about stress. And my question is, what is your favorite way to reduce stress?
I read a lot. That's
even more stressful for me.
Yeah, it's an escape, and I will read. I mean, anything. I think fictional historical pieces are probably my favorite genre, but I'll read everything from fantasy to a Danielle Steele romance.
What's the best book you've read lately?
Oh,
what
the
are
best
you reading
book I've
now?
read.
That should be a whole nother question.
I should save that one.
Me and
I
Suzanne
have
could-
some. I just finished the book Kindred
Okay.
by Octavia Butler.
Yes, I think my ADHD doesn't allow me to read. But I just get lost in the words sometimes. So I don't.
Is
read
that
novels or
ADHD
anything.
then, or is that dyslexia possibly?
No, it might be. Anyway, let's
Last week
stop.
we covered our seasonal allergy.
Let's not overanalyze John here.
You're the one who brought
That's how I relieve my stress by analyzing John.
Yeah. I mean, artists are saying I'm next. Who's next?
I have one.
Okay.
Recently, it's been working out. I've been
Oh.
going to the gym or different gyms. I use ClassPass. ClassPass, please sponsor us.
What is
Would be
that?
great. It is an app where you pay a monthly membership, and instead of going to one gym, you can go to pretty much any gym you want in the Raleigh area and take a class there. So I've been doing reformer Pilates. I've been doing a lot of yoga. I just did a Swiftie Sunday cycling class.
Stop it.
It was fabulous. It is March Madness at that studio, and they were doing Folklore versus Evermore.
Oh man,
Yeah. I'm trying to get
I
into
don't
another
understand
class on
any of
this
these
Sunday.
words.
If we called this
That's
the
good stuff.
Swiftie Scenic View podcast, would we do better?
Maybe. The Swifties
Did we-
will rally around
I mean,
anything related
that's
to
almost enough
Taylor.
to make me want to go to like a spin class with you or something.
Oh, you should do that.
This Sunday. They're doing Tortured Poets Department versus Midnight.
There you go. You got a date. What time is this?
Pay money.
It's at 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I'm out.
It's a 9:30 a.m. class.
Oh, that would ruin my whole day.
That makes it's been making my day better because I'm usually a wake up at noon, 1 p.m. on the weekends kind of girl, and I have not been wanting to do that. So my friend was like, let's do 8:30, 9:30 a.m. classes, and then we go get coffee afterwards.
Noon or
Sounds
1 is a
cool.
lot, Sam. That's how late do you stay up?
Till like 3
I was
a.m., 4
expecting,
a.m.
I was expecting
Oh,
like,
to be young.
you're way young.
I stay up way too late because my brain will not shut off, and then I sleep until it's like noon on a weekend.
It's like ADHD central around this joint.
Yeah.
I'm feeling anxious as we talk.
Okay, how are you going to manage that, artist? What do you do to manage stress?
I used to play guitar to manage it, and then I got away from that. Just like Representative Torbett was saying, he's getting back
Yeah.
into music. I understand that. There's something about music that's helpful, but I haven't been doing that. Yard work is really the only way I ever feel like I clear my head, and dadgum, that's boring compared to all this Taylor Swift staying up till 3 o'clock stuff she just said.
So, I mean, I have several things that I cope with, but a little known one you may not know that peppermints actually reduce your anxiety.
I didn't.
Also, fans in a bowl of ice water.
Yeah.
That will reset your vagus
Yeah,
nerve
so
and
you got to
really bring
ground
your anxiety
yourself,
down.
right?
Yeah.
So-
Same with sour candy.
Yep.
My mom, she started supporting me having sour candy whenever I want because I love sour. And I never knew why. But it just calms my nervous system.
Like resets your brain. Mm-hmm. Skirt, skirt.
But yeah, so peppermints, I guess, would be mine because it's something to do with the peppermint oil. I don't know. But apparently it's
also good for
has
hot
medicinal. So that was a fun question. And thanks, everyone, for joining us this week. Do you guys have anything else?
No.
I'll say sorry once again about the roof sounds. I soundproofed the whole room, but I didn't think I would have to soundproof the roof of this room.
And ironically, we've gotten to the end of the podcast and they've gotten quiet.
I know.
Yeah.
Let's just do it all over again.
Should have started at 2 p.m.
I think we're going to have to get a fan in the World Podcast headquarters.
definitely.
We'll have to get a
It's
silent
beautifully
fan.
It's
hot in
It's
here.
a
It's
little
so hot, I
steamy
love
in
it.
here, yeah.
Cozy.
I'm comfy.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us.